join, and then we'll start. Okay, so good afternoon again, and welcome to this first virtual exchange in 2026, focusing on institutional coordination for drought resilience. My name is Sabina Bocal. I'm a senior project manager at the Integrated Drought Management Program, and I will be moderating this first part of today's session. This virtual exchange is jointly organized by the IDMP and the Food and Agriculture Organization, building on our shared work for strengthening drought risk management. And today, as I mentioned, we're focusing on institutional coordination, which is a key element for effective drought preparedness, mitigation, and response. Also, the core part of the event are the guidelines, which we will present it and will be discussed later today. They were developed through this collaboration between IDMP and FAO and aim to support countries in strengthening coordination, improving preparedness, and responding more effectively to drought. So let me first briefly walk you through today's program. We will start with the short welcoming remarks from FAO, and this will be followed by a presentation of the guidelines by one of the key experts involved in this. We will then have an interactive discussion on what makes institutional coordination work in practice, moderated by FAO, and this will be then followed by country case studies from Ghana, Eswatini, and the Philippines. We will then, of course, open a floor for discussion and continue with our traditional marketplace segment where partners will present their initiative. And finally, we will conclude with wrap-up remarks. But before we begin, we would like to get a quick sense of who is joining today. So James will put in a chat a link to the short poll with 2 simple questions. And please take a moment to respond to this. So we would like to see from where are you joining today? Let's see. Let's wait a bit for answers to start coming in. Of course, you can also, you can also put in a chat. That's great. Maybe James, we can go to the second question then as well, if this one. Okay, great. Yes, so the second one, if you can let us know which type of institution you represent, because this is exactly the focus of today's session, this strong institutional coordination, cooperation between these different levels and type of institutions. So we would like to see what is a current setup in this online this event. So please. Or it's the poll not working, maybe, I don't know, because we're not getting any answers in.
Should be
Okay,
seeing
we are
the
getting
results.
Yeah, we don't see the results.
Okay.
At least I'm not seeing them yet. But I can see that in the chat it's very a lot of answers there, so nice. Okay, perfect. So it's a really wide range of different institutions, from government to NGO to research. So yeah, let's just continue. Thank you very much. It's great really to have such a diverse group of participants with us today. So with that, I would like now to invite Maher Salman, Senior Land and Water Officer from FAO, to open the session and say some welcoming remarks. Please, Maher, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Sabina. Good afternoon, good morning, colleagues. Very interesting to see the number exceeding 120. That tells how interest is generated by this topic. And in that, a particular and warm welcome to our colleagues joining us from the Philippines, from Ghana, from Eswatini. We're genuinely looking forward to hearing from you as well. The cases. As we all know, drought is without a question one of the most complex and far-reaching natural hazards we face. And evidence is clear. Drought events are becoming more frequent, more intense, and more widespread as climate change accelerates. As part of the global drought community, FAO, together with partners like the UNCCD, WMO, IDMP, and GWP, invested significantly in understanding and proactively managing drought. So enabling countries to implement their national drought plans, and within the framework of a program supported by the GEF, we are supporting more than 40 countries worldwide to move from planning to implementation. The level of support, in fact, varies according to the needs of the countries. But if there is one lesson that experience has taught us, it is this. Technical tools, however excellent, are only as effective as the institutional structures that deploy them. A drought early warning system that does not reach all concerned authorities is missing opportunities. A plan developed in isolation from managers, agricultural officers, disaster risk authorities will inevitably fall short. And most important, resources mobilized too late cannot deliver what is expected by communities. So the challenge then is not only technical, it is institutional. It's about how governments, agencies, and organizations coordinate, how they share information, align their priorities, and act together across sectors and levels of governance. In partnership with the UNCCD, WMO, GWP, we produced guidelines on institutional coordination for drought management, precisely to address this dimension of integrated drought management. The publication outlines the importance of institutional coordination and communication and provides relevant case studies from countries across different regions. The discussion today will make the opportunity to further discuss these topics. Moderated by my colleagues, and we will begin with an expert discussion drawing on recent analysis of coordination mechanisms from around the world. Then we will hear directly from practitioners in a number of countries with distinct geographic, political, and institutional context, each offering lessons that others can learn from. We will then open the floor for questions, and in our marketplace segment, we invite short interventions from participants who have their own experience and insights to share. As FAO, we believe that integrated drought management must build on sound policy, robust technical capacity, and critically strong institutional frameworks. Of these three, institutional coordination is perhaps the least visible and the hardest to measure, but it may also be the most decisive when drought event strikes. Drought resilience is built in quiet moment, not only in the emergency. So to all of us joining today, thank you for being here and thank you for what you contribute to this field. With that, I'm happy to hand it over to my colleague, Stefania Giusti, who will moderate our first discussion. Stefania is with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Maher, and Thank you really so much, everyone, for accepting the invitation. It's going to be a quite intense event, but I'm sure that through the presentation of FAO, WMO and IDMP, GWP results that we are going to present in the next 1 hour and 30 minutes is going to be a very rich discussion. So I'm very happy to have people coming from different sectors, different regions across the world, because this is really going to enrich our discussion beyond what we as organization mentioned so far have already produced. But just to initiate our discussion, I'm very happy to have here today with us Mr. David Walker, who is going to present right now the result of the collaboration. Mr. Walker is a principal hydrologist at GQA. Formerly, he was working with the team of FAO, IDMP, GWP, and WMO on the report that looks into particularly the enabling condition related to the institutional settings and mechanisms that are fundamental to manage drought in a proactive way and are absolutely key to achieve the best results in drought management. As David is going to show now, the report looks into specific dimension of institutional coordination for drought management and also provides some case studies to really look into how in practice this condition can be met. So without further ado, we will have time to discuss this dimension in the follow-up exchanges amongst us and then through the country presentation. So let me give the floor directly to David and please go ahead with your intervention, David. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just waiting for the, okay, there we go. Yeah, so I'm David Walker. Thank you for inviting me to give this presentation. This was some work that I did with IDMP, with FAO in 2024, and this is the first chance we've had to present this work. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the how this document came about. You know, Matt has told you this was a guidelines on institutional coordination. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So this is what this document looks like. Yeah, guideline on institutional coordination for drought management. And I've just included this slide because I thought these slides might be shared after the event, and this is where you can find it. And yeah, I'll just point out, I did this as an independent researcher. I'm now working as a hydrogeologist, but not on a full-time contract because I still want to keep my foot in drought. Yeah, drought research is really interesting and really important. And yeah, my experience, it's all good people working in it. So I'm still available for any drought-related research that might be needed. Yeah, next slide, please. So the origin of this work, of this research, so in 2017 in COP, the UNCCD COP in China, the drought initiative was launched where national drought plans were to be developed for many countries. And those national drought plans were based on the IDMP 10-step process to produce a national drought plan, and also on the UNCCD template model national drought plan. These are both documents that are openly available. If you look on UNCCD, IDMP, FAO's websites, these templates and plans are available. And in 2024, there were 24 national drought plans that were ready and were published online. That map shows where they were. So we had a good distribution of big countries, small countries, islands, semi-arid, different continents. And apparently at the moment, there's now 60, 70 national drought plans online. And yeah, these are all fascinating. If I was still working at a university in research, I'd spend more time and try to get a project just analysing further these national drought plans. And so we analysed them from a perspective, like a grounded theory, a bottom-up perspective of what were these institutions, how were these countries coordinating their institutions? Were there different models of coordinating the institutions? Like, we went into this research with no hypotheses. We let the results emerge from the different national drought plans. And yeah, some of them were 40, 50 pages, very concise. Others were 200, 250 pages, full of figures and plots and nice photographs. And they were all in English, French, Spanish. And yeah, they form the basis for these guidelines. Next slide, please. And these are the 5 key sections of these guidelines. So we're going to have a discussion afterwards with Stefania. And I just wanted to highlight the 5 key sections of this guideline. So there's the minimum institutional framework. So these are the institutions which are fundamental in national drought planning. And then the analysis of approaches. These are the different coordination mechanisms that different countries applied. Then stakeholder engagement. There's a section on how the different countries engage stakeholders, so the people on the ground, farmers, water users. There's a section on the different communication strategies of the different countries, so that's communication between institutions as well as communication with the general public. And then there's a section on monitoring and evaluation mechanisms. So that's not just monitoring and evaluation of the National Drought Plan, it's monitoring of actions that are going on within the country for incorporation in the National Drought Plans. And yeah, we're going to discuss this further next. Next slide, please. Thank you. So FAO did a very good job of producing this document. It's not just 100 pages of text. It's lots of figures, diagrams, tables. It's very easy to read, and those sections that I just talked about, they're all quite standalone. You know, if you're only interested in monitoring and evaluation, you could just look at that bit and get some really good examples and case studies of different countries that you could potentially transfer to your own country context. And I just want to point you towards the bottom right slide. So when I'm talking about these models of institutional coordination, there you can see 2 examples of those models. So that's what I'm talking about if I say an approach for institutional coordination, or a model, or a framework. It's this system of having a drought commission, and then how the other institutions, how they relate, how they fit together. Next slide, please. So yeah, Maher and Stefania have already summed up the main findings, really, but I'll give you another summary before we go into more detail. So yeah, we discovered that there is this minimum institutional framework, these fundamental institutions that have to be involved in drought management. But we also discovered that these models of coordination have to be context specific. It's not just one size fits all. It depends on the country context. And often that depends on the financial situation and the temporal planning. So is drought, does it happen a lot? Does it happen rarely? Have you got a lot of money? Is there not a lot of money available for drought? And then, yeah, communication, as you would expect, is crucial. Communication between institutions, communication with the public. And then the monitoring and evaluation is also crucial to ensure the effectiveness of the drought plans, and to ensure they're up to date with what's going on around the world. And overall, you know, the overall aim of this is just to improve resilience to drought. Okay, yeah, that's all for my slides. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, David. I understand the task was not easy because, as you said, the document is very rich. So it is conceived in a very comprehensive way. So I invite everyone to really review it. It is available on the FAO Drought portal as well. So I would ask my colleagues also to post in the chat the link to the to the publication directly, and invite everyone really to go through it. But you already gave us a bit of a flavor to the main dimensions that are addressed throughout the publication. I would like now to have this conversation and to ask some questions that will really help us to contextualize the overall discussion before we move later on to the countries and hear from them directly. So we prepared some questions. Hopefully we will have time to go through all of them, but the first that comes to my mind, it is something that you already mentioned. The institutional dynamics and context is clearly important and decisive in all contexts. But at the same time, in the publication, it emerges very clearly that there are some minimum requirements when we talk about institutions that are needed in order for the policies to be really taken ahead and taken on the ground, so to be decisive for the actions to happen. So in your view, what are these minimum conditions from institutional perspective that are needed for countries to deliver?
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, based on the analysis of the national drought plans, we came up with 8. We discovered there were 8 institutions which are fundamental, irrespective of the country context, where it is, its climate. And those 8, so I don't have them all in my head, I'm just looking across at the notes. So the head of state or some key political figure, they are really important to provide leadership, provide direction, and ensure that people are taking this seriously. The institutions are taking this seriously. Although in some countries, it could just be endorsement and support of a competent technical institution. So like I've just moved to Scotland, and it's SEPA, it's the Scottish Environmental Protection Agency. In Korea, it's K-Water. They're often considered like the gold star of like drought commissions. And then secondly, it's the Ministry of Finance, because they have to be involved for things like budget allocation, for financial planning, mobilizing resources, and then appraisal of costs and benefits and economic impacts. And then kind of an obvious one would be national meteorological hydrological institutes, who are forecasting weather, producing early warning systems. And then the focal point for UNCCD, just for, staying aware of what's going on elsewhere in the world. Ensuring, so the UNCCD Strategic Objective 3, so mitigating, adapting to, managing effects of drought. So ensuring that objective is being dealt with. And then the Ministry of Water, another sort of for obvious reasons, so we're responsible for water resources management. Ministry of Agriculture, again, generally would be quite obvious. So in terms of food security, crop and livestock management. And then the 7 and 8, so the Ministry of the Environment, or a Ministry of Natural Resources. So thinking about things like biodiversity, environmental sustainability. And then a ministry or an organization for women or for gender, because as we know, it's generally women who suffer more from drought and the impacts of drought. So they were the 8 that we came up with, but in some countries they'll be named differently. In some countries they might be combined, like the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Water might be together. In other countries, some of those organizations will be within, the National Hydromet Office may be part of the Ministry of Water. But then there are others. They were the key 8, but then there were others which are fundamental depending on your country context. So they're not always going to be necessary. Like we don't, here in Scotland, we don't need any organization in charge of desertification. But yeah, and those other institutions, we put them into 4 categories. So if you have, so first it's thinking about vulnerable populations. So in some countries, like a Ministry of Rural Affairs, or organizations for indigenous people, for minorities, for vulnerable groups. If a country has those vulnerable populations, then these institutions are fundamental. And then the affected sector. So again, if in different countries, different sectors are affected differently by drought, or some sectors are more important or don't exist. So a country that experiences food insecurity, waterborne diseases, then a Ministry of Health is going to be very important. Countries with a lot of hydropower generation, and a Ministry of Energy is going to be important. Countries suffering from wildfires, then a Department of Forestry or a fire department, they're going to be fundamental. And then, in lots of European countries, in the Alps, snow drought is becoming really serious and really affecting the tourism economy, which could be very, very significant in their economy. So the Department of Tourism or a tourist board they're going to be fundamental. And then thirdly, we came up with, so countries that already have a high risk of natural hazards may already have a national disaster risk reduction agency, or a climate change agency. They may already be in place. So there's no point inventing another one for drought. That existing agency can be part of this. And then finally, just research and innovation. So if there are universities or research institutes within the country who are doing drought research, then they also ought to be incorporated. So the latest science is being incorporated.
Absolutely. Yes, and then, yes, as you just mentioned, it is very flexible depending on the country context, but in any case, even the minimum required institutions and stakeholders that are identified as necessary are going to have to work together, and they need to be sitting, let's say, around the same table, or find a way to collaborate and be coordinated. So in the report itself, after identifying the minimum requirements that you just indicated, you also screened somehow the different approaches and coordination models that you found across different countries. We will have 3 participants representing their own country context, which have very different themselves coordination mechanisms. But again, I would like to hear a bit more from you. What are the patterns that in your analysis emerge? If in your view, there are some coordination models that can be more or less effective, and what could be the conditions, also as a sort of advice for colleagues who are listening today that may inspire them.
Yeah, so those different coordination models, I'll try and give you some examples using my hands rather than a diagram. So the key first step, in the template for the 10-step process for producing national drought plans, step 1 is establishing the Drought Commission. So the Drought Commission is in charge of supervising, coordinating, and leading development of the national drought plan, and then implementing it. And it's that Drought Commission that has the connection with like a high-ranking political figure, prime minister or president, or so all these different models and approaches are, you have that Drought Commission, and then it's how these other working groups or how these other task forces, how they connect. And yeah, as you said, there's no single model which is applicable everywhere. It very much depends on the country context, like especially the climate and the frequency of drought. And also if there are existing models for other hazards in place, the government type or the government structure, if it's very centralized or it's very hierarchical, like the available human and financial resources, the size of the country is important, and how centralized, decentralized it is. And then also just the general culture in the country. So some of these models are more applicable in some places than others. So I'll give you an example or a few examples of some of the approaches or some of the models. So there's the one that we call the cluster approach, which is when you had this drought commission, and then around that you have working groups related to different affected sectors. So there could be an agricultural working group, water, health, food. And then within those working groups, you have representatives from all those different fundamental institutions. So there could be, representatives of the Ministry of Agriculture or Ministry of Water, but in many different working groups. And yeah, this is quite an expensive, because it's quite extensive type of approach. But it's what's often used for dealing with various different natural hazards. So the Philippines was the example that we used that you're going to hear more about after, because they have this in place for dealing with cyclones and volcanic eruptions or earthquakes. So that can then be applied to drought. So it's not as costly because it's being applied to multiple different natural hazards. And then another example of an approach, there's a kind of a vertical aligned approach. We called it a standing committee approach, where you have a drought commission, which is anchored at the high level of government, and then below that, regional committees, then like district committees, and then even more like local or community level committees. And within those committees, again, you've got representatives of water, of agriculture, of finance. And that's really applicable in a big country, a big country, a big heterogeneous country where you might have drought in one area, not in another. So there's no point in centralizing everything, because a lot of the country might be fine. It might be just one focused area that's currently dealing with a drought. So the example we used there was Argentina. As you expect, you could have a drought in the north, and then it's a massive country and it's not needed elsewhere. And then kind of the complete opposite end of the spectrum to that approach, a model that we call the technical working group approach, which is where you just have one group and all those fundamental and all the different institutions, they are all in one committee. And so, as you'd expect, this is useful for small countries. So it's useful to have this still centralized. And the example we used was Moldova, because if you've got a small country, the human resources aren't, the population is not that big, the human resources aren't that big. So it's useful to have all these institutions in one place, and then communication becomes easier because you probably all sat in the same office. That it's not, you don't need a big complicated protocol. You just talk to the person at the side of you. And yeah, various other. There are some quite simple. I'll just mention one of the other approaches that we came across was the 3 pillars approach. So people familiar with integrated drought management, you'll know the 3 pillars. So monitoring and early warning, mitigation, response and preparedness, and then risk and impact assessment. So you have the drought commission and then a working group associated with each of those 3 pillars. And given that there's lots of literature on the 3 pillars of drought management, then this is an approach that's useful for for countries with little experience of drought. So this was being used in Sierra Leone because it's very easy to get to find literature or learn from other countries that are already applying this approach. And there are other like simple approaches like that related to drought phases. So a subcommittee for preparing, one for during a drought, one for responding to drought. And yeah, it's so which one of these approaches you want to use? Sorry, go on.
No,
you're about to say something.
Please go ahead if you want to complete, and then we move ahead. Sure.
Yeah, so depending which of these a country wants to use, the cost is significant. It's you think the gold star is having this permanent commission, but that's expensive. And if it's a country where droughts don't happen very often, then that's not going to be cost effective. But equally, if you have these groups which are just forming whenever there's a drought, it also costs money to demobilize and then mobilize. Yeah. And so if that's happening frequently, then it might be more cost effective to have a permanent sort of institution. So as you would expect, countries that experience a lot of drought, the examples in the document were like Tunisia and like Argentina, they have permanent drought commissions in place. Whereas countries that don't experience drought very often, we had Guyana, we had Dominican Republic, and yeah, they just form when necessary. And these models, they're not set in stone. Some countries combine them. There's aspects of different models within the models. But yeah, it's really key to choose one according to the country context. So I guess that's why you're here, FAO and UNCCD and IDMP, to guide the countries towards what might be the most appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can confirm you that while collaborating with countries, this issue always came up from the very beginning. And we really discussed extensively with stakeholders in the countries to understand what are the conditions that they were working at that stage, let's say, whether they were effective or not. We could present some of the findings from the reports to help them to identify also different settings, institutional setting that could facilitate the discussion and the action, the implementation of the plans themselves. So very happy to see that we have different contexts represented today through Ghana, Eswatini, and Philippines. We are going to hear from them. But no, I wanted to say during your presentation, I really liked the way you moved your hand and decided to design during your speech how these coordination mechanisms are somehow put in place. But I can assure everyone again that we design those different models in the publication. So if you want to explore more and understand more how they are put in place, and again, think them and review them against your national context to understand what could be working better for you. Please consider the guidelines also as a publication that can help you in this respect. And of course, reach out to us if needed, and we can see how we can help you further. But I think, David, this conversation, these replies from yours already gave a great introduction to also what are the different country contexts, together with some of the key aspects that relate to the institutional mechanism. So I would like to move ahead now with the countries to hear more from them directly. What are the conditions in terms of drought management, and also through their presentation to understand from them directly what are the mechanisms that are in place in those countries. So thank you, David, so far for the support, the contribution, and for the great inspiration through the presentation today. And I would move ahead now with our first country, if he's there, Dr. Asher Nkebe from Ghana. I'm not sure if he's able yet. Dr. Asher? I'm
with you.
Yes, good. Very good. Dr. Asher, I think is connecting from the mobile, or I'm not sure if he's. Oh no, you're in an office, but we have your presentation ready. So
Yes.
if you can see the screen, please,
Yes.
you have the floor. Go ahead.
Okay.
In your 5 minutes. Thank you for
Wow,
considering the
great.
time. I know.
Then let's move to the next page. The next page. Yes. So we're talking about drought in our country. Drought is ranked the most critical water security, and it's a huge challenge for us. And then it's the sectors it affects: hydropower, agriculture, domestic water supply, etc. And then we have in place VBA, the Volta Basin Authority, which is made up of a number of countries, about 6 countries, that we work together always to make sure that we're able to resolve challenges according to that comes with drought. The next page, please. So the critical impact, like the effect, like on impact of on humans, we 3.5 million are affected, and on our GDP, 15%, and we know that if nothing is done by the year 2050, the effect will hit 34%. It affects food security, 36% is affected. And the high-risk zones are the three northern regions. And the three northern regions, we have this, the northern sector. We experience this unimodal rainfall regime. 7 months of dryness and only 5 months of rainfall. And this period, rainfall is erratic yearly. There's no year that you didn't encounter it. It's erratic and dry spells. We move to the next page, sorry. The next page, we have the institutional coordination for drought management in Ghana. We have the institution like NADBO, the EPA. In fact, the NADBO serves as a lead for emergency coordination, which affect drought. But an EPA is the lead institution that coordinates institutions in the country. We have various acts to that effect. And we have Water Resource Commission, the GMET, and then the Ghana Hydro. They all provide technical specific anchor for water sector on drought. Next page. I realize that the time is very, very limited. So we move to the next page. Next page, so that we can have time and talk about the various institutions. Then how the institutions coordination is organized in Ghana. That's the topic. So like I mentioned, we have the EPA and then the various institutions that we work with, like Water Resource Commission, NADMO, MOFA, JIDA, and then the VRE, GRICO, and then GMET. Now, how do we, in practice, how do these institutions work? Ghana employs. Oh, that's the next. That's the next page. Next page. Yes, Ghana employs a multi-tiered coordination structure guided by several key policy frameworks. The framework under EPA, we have the National Action Program to combat desertification, and the purpose is to provide strategic direction for addressing drought and land degradation. And the key contributions are to promote sustainable land management, align Ghana with global commitment under the UNCCD, and strengthens community level resilience. Then we have the National Integrated Water Resource Management. And the purpose for this is to guide a sustainable water resource management across sectors. And the contribution, it encourages effective water use, support disaster risk reduction, and ensures water availability during drought periods. Then we have the National Drought Plan, which the purpose is a framework for drought preparedness and response. And the key contributions to drought management is the NAP aims to strengthen early warning systems, preparedness, and coordinated response mechanism. Then we have early warning system institutions that are leading it, the GMET, Water Resource Commission, NADMO, and even at the community level. Let's move to the next page. Now, what are the lessons that have been learned? The lessons that have been learned, defined legal mandates help eliminate coordination gaps and reduce jurisdictional conflict during drought crisis. As I mentioned, all these institutions are backed by acts. And so there's a well-defined legal mandate for each one of them. Then there's also integration cross scales, linking local water committees with national systems ensures information flow and inclusive response. We can't work at the top and leave it there. We have to run down to the community level, and that is what will make the impact. The early warning is critical. I mean, proactive data sharing mechanisms are essential for timely evidence-based and decision making. Then we have this boundary data sharing. I've mentioned that we have the Volta Basin Authority, the VBA. It's made up of various countries: Mali, Burkina, Benin, Togo, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire. In fact, we all have something to do with the various rivers that flow into the country, the Volta River. Now, then community level, as I mentioned, local outreach in northern Ghana translate national policies into community level drought resilience. The next page, please. The main challenges and gaps. The main challenges and gaps are weak institutional communication. That's a huge challenge, and limited real-time integration between national and local information systems. Then the next one is reactive governance. Coordination during drought events is often improvised rather than guided by pre-agreed trigger-based frameworks. Now the next is funding, which is a constraint, and to me, that's the mother of all the constraints. Inadequate and inconsistent funding affect data collection, system maintenance, and emergency response capacity. Then we have community communication gap. High resolution early warning plan does not reach individual farmers or district assemblies for an actionable format. Finally, we have climate change intensification. Return periods for drought in the white and black Volta Basin are shortening. Existing frameworks are becoming inadequate. Then the next page.
Dr. Asher, may I ask you we're running a bit late, sorry.
Yeah, okay. The key
1 minute, please.
The key lessons here, define clear legal mandates, as I mentioned, for the various institutions. Build technical capacity, invest in transboundary cooperation, as I mentioned, develop trigger-based financing to solve the various problems. And the project that we have implemented, the landscape restoration and small-scale mining projects, etc. I have to rush over a lot. And there's a column for lessons for our sister countries, what we want to share. I don't think I can. I can remember it, but
I think if you don't mind, Dr. Asher, if there are questions eventually later on, I would ask you to intervene to conclude on lessons learned as well. But we're running a bit late.
Okay. But key lesson for other countries: let's declare clear legal mandates, build technical capacity, then invest in transboundary cooperation, develop trigger-based financing. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Asher, and really apologies for the limited time, but I think the case of Ghana and the experience of the EPA, which is the established institution, so going back to what David was presenting before, Ghana is the case of a country where there is an established institution that works in collaboration with different other bodies who join responsibility. So it is a permanent coordination mechanism, as we were talking before. I think especially the case of working across transboundary and river basin level, it is a very interesting experience that we can learn from. So thanks again, Dr. Asher, also for the presenting some of the challenges and the lessons learned. I would now move on to our next country, again in Africa, a bit further down in the south, a small country, Eswatini. And we have with us Dr. Sifo, who is from the Eswatini Environment Authority, also presenting the case of today. This is another country where FAO has an ongoing collaboration with. So good afternoon, Dr. Shiba, and please, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you. We are happy to present the institutional coordination from Eswatini. Can we go to the next slide? So from what David Walker was presenting, in our case, we have a permanent institution that is coordinating drought management in Eswatini. The government established a parastatal body under Deputy Prime Minister's office called the National Disaster Management Agency to coordinate disaster risk reduction and disaster risk management programs, including drought. So it assumes the role of intercluster coordination of the national multi-hazard contingency plan. So can we go to the next slide? So these are the role, each entity has a role that is defined, but the government has the ultimate mandate and responsibility to lead and coordinate all national disaster preparedness. Then according to the Act of 2006, we have established NDMA to lead this process. And then we have what we call a National Committee on Multi-Hazard Contingency Planning, which comes from different departments and different role players within the country. The next slide. Then we also have the civil society group, which play an active role, especially during humanitarian crisis. We have civil society organizations such as Red Cross, World Vision, and many others who play a pivotal role during disaster coordination and implementation in the country. Then we have the United Nations team, which is also playing responsible for effective and efficient implementation of inter-agency disaster risk management. They are also coordinated within the UN platforms. There is someone who leads within the country, and then they work with the government department. The next slide. And then we have the National Emergency Preparedness and Response Unit, which is responsible for health issues during drought break and when we have droughts. And then we have the Multi-Sector Involvement Engagement Committee, which comes also from different sectors to work during drought management. The next slide. Then we have what we call Eswatini Vulnerability Assessment Committee, which collects household level information to assess level of chronic food insecurity, malnutrition, or livelihoods or vulnerability in rural households. Then we have the Eswatini Meteorological Service, which is responsible to issue seasonal forecasts and sensitize farmers on importance and use of forecast planning. This information is transmitted to farmers through extension officers. The next slide. Then we have the Department of Water Affairs, which is responsible for hydrological data, and it issues drought-related information. Then we have the National Early Warning Unit, which is also does food supply assessment and provide that information to farmers to warn them, especially related to weather conditions, crop production, and so that the country can be ready for any disaster that may strike ahead. The next slide. So when we look at the coordination, there are monthly meetings when the event is there, but if the event is not there during management, these meetings are done quarterly. And then information is presented during cluster meetings. NDA then collates those quarterly reports and present a report either to cabinet or to the parliament for action. Now, there are also regional meetings through SADC that are useful in considering the seasonal forecast, the regional forecast, which builds to national forecast in terms of weather forecasts. And then we do have monthly updates during drought events, which informs cabinet decisions and realignment of budgets, because during such a crisis, then the budget is realigned. But these are the structures that inform that. Next slide. The cluster approach is good because it ensures participation of key stakeholders. And this approach influences realignment of budget because we all know resources are required. So once it is declared a disaster, then the budget will be made available, especially in times of drought. However, there is a challenge because there are many stakeholders, civil society, private sector, government, and then UN. So it's very complex to coordinate these stakeholders. So, but it is important to ensure that all these key stakeholders participate because they provide additional funding to the government sectors. Next slide. I won't go to this one, but we were just given an example of a project that is ongoing, Umbulu's Landscape, which is trying to improve eco-resilience and ensure that the Mbuluzi River landscape is highly productive and climate resilient. Thank you very much. I think I can end here.
Thank you, Dr. Shiba. Thank you for also being very well in time. I think the mechanism presented for the Swatini case, which is the intercluster coordination, in fact, is a different kind of mechanisms that also is illustrated in the report, works well for Eswatini because that being not such a big country, it allows really to include all stakeholders as you illustrated in your presentation. So I think this kind of mechanism is in fact very effective for a country like Eswatini, and it allows the possibility to include all of stakeholders around the table and also to manage drought in a proactive way within the broader spectrum of disaster management. As you said, there is a clear responsibility that deals with disasters in the country, and drought falls within the mandate of that authority. So that, I think, is a different model from Ghana that works well with Eswatini. But now let's quickly move on to yet another country, which is completely different context. We move to Asia. So let me give the floor now to Dr. Gina Nilo, Director of the Bureau of Soil and Water Management, another collaboration of FAO under the Drought Program. Good afternoon, good evening on your side, Dr. Gina. Please go ahead and let us know how is drought managed from institutional perspective in the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Estefania. Good evening and mabuhay. That's our greetings from the Philippines. I am pleased to introduce the institutional coordination for drought management in the Philippines. As mentioned, next slide, please. As mentioned by Dr. Estefania, so we're in another location. Now we are located in the Pacific Typhoon Belt, which on the average we are hit by around 20 tropical cyclones every year. So as you can see, we experience excess of rainfall, and at the same time, we are experiencing drought. Because of our position as well on the Pacific Ring of Fire, we are exposed to different disaster, earthquake, volcanic eruptions, and susceptibility to tsunamis, high storm surges, rising sea levels, landslide, floods, and drought. And that makes us I don't want to say we are the number one, but I hate to say this, but we have the highest global disaster risk of about 46.86 as reported by the World Risk Index. So next slide, please. As I mentioned, we have an extreme of excess water and lack of water. So we also experience damages and losses to El Nino, and we have classified these occurrences from 2019 to 2024. So far during this period, we have 4 strong El Nino occurrence, and the latest was the one we experienced in 2023 and 2024. Next, please. What now is the impact to agriculture and fisheries sector? Of course, we have 3 drivers. We have above normal temperature, we have less rainfall and heavy rainfall. And I would like to focus on its effect to crops, livestock, and fisheries. And because Philippines is dominantly rice and corn, so the effect on crops is as much as 38% of our rice are affected. Corn, similarly, 38%. High value crop is 21% of our cropland, and 1% impact both for fisheries and livestock. So as you can see, these are the impact which are also experienced in all other countries due to high temperature. So of course, we have decline in moisture availability, high occurrence of pests and diseases. For livestock, we have heat stress. For fisheries, we experience fish kill, seaweed diseases, coral bleaching, as well as phytoplankton and biomass. And of course, if we have less rainfall, our dams, our reservoir are depleted of water. There we also experience over-extraction of groundwater. These are 2 sources of our water supply to irrigate our fields. And of course, that results to lower crop yield production, delay in planting, occurrence of pests and diseases as well as reduction in our planting areas. Similarly, if we have heavy rainfall, there is a reduction in crop planting areas due to soil erosion and due to reduced soil fertility. Next slide, please. Now I would like to share our institutional mechanism. So we have the National El Nino team. It's an El Nino team if during normal period, and it becomes transformed into a task force. You see, there is more urgency if we talk about task force during drought. So overall, it's under the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council. So that's a government institution, and it is supported by the National El Nino team. And this National El Nino team is led by the department, DILG, or the Department of Interior and Local Government, and co-lead by the Department of Social Welfare and Development, as well as the Department of National Defense. So overall, the National Disaster Reduction Management Council, while it is a permanent or a government institution, it is supported by all other departments. And that includes an operational department to look into the operationalization pertaining to agriculture. So that's why we have the Department of Agriculture as member of the Technical Working Group, the Department of Science and Technology, Department of Environment, Energy, Health, Local Government, National Defense, and even Information Communication Technology. So obviously all the departments are involved. Then we have the Strategy Management Unit, and this is led by the National Economic Development Authority, now DepDep. This is the National Planning Agency of the Philippines, and they are in charge in the preparation of the National Action Plan, including the action plans for various thematic areas of concern. What are these thematic areas of concern? It includes food security, water security, energy security, health security, and public safety. And each of these thematic areas of concern are in charge to coordinate the monitoring of the National Action Plan implementation. That's the role of NEDA. And updating as necessary, recommend actions for the implementation at the regional and local levels to address emerging issues and concern. I want you to have a close look at the National El Niño Team and Task Force. Please take note that we operate from the national level, which we call the National El Niño Team, down to the regional El Niño Team and the local El Niño Team. So that's how we operate. And we have the Strategic Communication Unit. And the Strategic Communication Unit consists of the Presidential Communication Office and the Department of National Defense and the OCD, Civil Defense. So the task is to provide information and education as well to effectively communicate and disseminate information about El Niño. So as I mentioned, there are technical working group, and this is tasked to assess the potential and risks of El Niño on different sectors. So next, please. Now I would like to move into the National Action Framework. While Dr. Walker presented the guidelines, so we simply work on the National Action Plan Framework, which consists of the goal. The goal is, of course, to increase the resiliency and communities for the society. And the goal for the National Action Plan is to mitigate and address the impacts of El Niño. And in this particular case, we work on 2023-2024 El Niño. So we work on the objectives and on the outcome for water security is, of course, to ensure sufficient water supply, food security, of course, adequate supply for food, energy security to minimize power interruptions, health to prevent the outbreak of diseases and manage the diseases, and for public safety, for to address related risks and hazards such as fire incidents, safety, and peace. Now let us move to the coordination in practice.
You have 1 minute, Dr. Gina, please.
Yes,
thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Estefania. So we coordinate among institutions, and this is done upon the activation of the El Niño team. As I said, from the team to the task force. Coordination is also done through regular submission of reports from the different sectors and departments I had mentioned. And of course, timely actions are crucial to receive the national information. What I would like to share now is that there is an ongoing effort to establish the Department of Water Resources. So this will avoid the fragmentation of agencies that addresses water management. And this is meant to enhance water security as well as to manage the resources in water. So this is an ongoing effort, and I believe this is now at the last reading in the Senate, and probably by next year, we have a dedicated agency which we call the Department of Water Resources. Lessons learned. Yes, it's good to harmonize and coordinate actions because these are intersectoral interests, multi-sectoral interests. And the challenge is to address drought. It is increasing, and we need to have a proactive measures needed prior to its occurrence. So forecasting, I think our digital digital agriculture programs are very good in this. And of course, the National Drought Plan. This is highly important to address drought. And I thank FAO at this point for helping us to prepare also our National Drought Plan. And this time, our drought investment case proposal to treat drought, to address drought and see it as an investment rather than a quick response measure merely addressing drought. So that's the report from the Philippines. Maraming salamat po. Thank you and God bless us all.
Thank you, Dr. Gina, and to the team at BSWM for presenting the case. The technical task force mentioned is a setting that works well in the Philippines, as Dr. Gina just said, because it allows the support of different authorities and is also established at different levels from national to local. So I invite all of you again to look more into the different settings and mechanisms that are presented in the report. But before I conclude, I invite everyone again to review the report prepared by David in collaboration with FAO, GWP, IDMP, because there is much more that we can discuss when it talks about institutions that can govern drought management. We didn't touch upon monitoring of national drought plans. We didn't touch upon communication strategies that can help and set the enabling conditions. So really, I want to conclude here, passing the floor to Sabina, thanking everyone for being with us today. I hope that the discussion was interesting as well for each and all of you. And if you are interested to know more, again, go to the report and let us know your view. We will be happy to exchange more on these topics. Thank you, everyone. And from my side, FAO, I will give the floor back to Sabina. Thank you to all the speakers.
Thank you, Stefania. Really great discussion and excellent moderation. So let's move now to our last part of the virtual exchange, our traditional part, marketplace segment, where we give space to all our partners, community members to share their ongoing initiatives, projects, tools, opportunities related to drought resilience. So I would like to ask each of the speakers to really stick to the 3 minutes because not to run out of time, and we really want to hear everyone. So first, let me invite Alisa Savadian from Country Water Partnership Armenia, presenting on IDMP development in Armenia. Alisa, please go ahead, and James will share the screen with your presentation, please.
Thank you, Sabina. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity to be here and present the project which implemented on behalf of Country Water Partnership Armenia with support of second stage of SDG 6. Second slide, please. The main project goal, it is existing drought risk management system in Armenia, develop of appropriate plan of development of drought and strengthening the drought risk management system. Second one. The project project duration, the project implemented within the 12 months. As I already mentioned, it is supported in the frame of SDG second stage. And the main goal of the project was assessing drought risk management system in Armenia, development of model template drought management plan, and selection pilot area, which in our case was Ararat River Basin Management Area, and development program of measures for this area. Some additional explanation about Armenia. We have 6 river basin management area, and Ararat one of this basin. So why we selected? Because it is very important area for us. The main irrigated area land is located here, and we decided to use this opportunity and development the template model for Ararat River Basin. But it is means that for next all 6 river basin, we need to have the such drought management plan also. At the end of the project, we have some saving and decided to going on the local community, and we just selected the biggest community of Ararat River Basin Management Area, working with local people, and also develop drought risk management plan on local level. Of course, we was not alone. The community already working with another donor supported by EU, but their main direction was flooding management, and we joined to this team and provide interactive map, provide our information about drought in the area, and so develop the local drought management plan for Masis community also. Next one, please. In our case, drought management plan called drought management and emergency response plan, because the name provided by Water's National Adaptation Plan, and it is in the frame of this program of measure. Government have responsibility to develop this plan and adopt it in the end of 2026. So our project support the government. The main player is the Ministry of Environment and Hydrometeorological Center, who is responsible for management of the government in our country and responsible for development and adoption of this document. This project fully supports Ministry of Environment, and all this information will be used from their side to development and adoption of drought management plan, which will be closed on the end of this year. 3 main components, which I would like to separate it. It is legal assessment. We are assessing secondary legislation, included law, included government decree, everything, lots of report from different project and program. Of course, the best practice of drought in our countries. Meteorological drought in Ararat River Basin Management Area. We use SPI index. It was used focusing on April-October season. It is vegetation season. And about hydrological drought, not long information, but I would like to mention that first time in Armenia, we use 3 new indicators of WMO, and these indicators support to data which was received from 4 hydro points, and for the period 1961 to 2024. Next one, please.
Alisa, can you, in few seconds, wrap up? Or
Okay. So I will be very shortly, and just mention one important thing, that we're also using remote sensing tools which support our data, and which provide additional validation for data received from our hydromet and climatic experts. And the main conclusion which I would like to provide is that data not be so differ. So for the period for which we don't have the data, we can use remote sensing tools and we can be succeeded in this. Next slide, please. Several points. This presentation will be located in our community of practice, and you can see our key findings. I just would like to mention that we have a lot of communication and stakeholder meetings. Next slide, please. Where the photo? Next Next one. This one. You can see that we have lots of meeting on the local level, on the ministry level. Here are our kickoff meetings, stakeholder meetings with different stakeholders. Just one remark from my side. Thank you very much, David, for your excellent presentation. I understand that we are in inception stage, but we are going slow, but in a very right direction. We have all the institutions which you mentioned, everyone involved in this process. Of course, we need additional coordination to everyone. We have Drought Intergovernmental Committee, which led by Deputy Prime Minister, but we need to be more efficient. We need to be more pragmatic, maybe. And the main conclusion, which I personally have from this project, that we need working not only on the national level, we need to go on the local level and working with local people. And it was my big pleasure working with Valentinash, with Colin Heran and Sabina. You always supportive, and I'm very appreciated for that. Thank you very much, and hope our cooperation will be continued.
Thank you, Elisa. Now let's turn to Siu Liu from UNCCD, presenting the Community of Learning and Practice. Siu, the floor is yours. Siu, I can see you here with us, but I'm not sure whether you can.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Perfect. Go ahead, yeah. Yes, you can start. See you. Okay. Maybe there's some technical issues. Should we continue with the next one and then we can return back to you, Siu. Okay, let's go to the next.
Okay, next after the next one, get back to me. Would that be okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Sorry for the minor disruption. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, let's continue then to Mohamed Noor Al Ibrahim presenting the Raga Community Drought Network. Also not with us, or okay. Then let's go to now. Yeah, I would like to invite then Sumon Miah from Disaster and Development Organization from Bangladesh, presenting a drought decision support system.
Thank you. Do you hear my voice right now?
Yes, we can hear you, and James will share the screen with your short presentation. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, everyone. Though it is the mainly collaboration with the Drought decision support system, but I will provide a small presentation about the how we can. Sorry. Do you hear my voice right now?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay,
yes.
sorry everyone.
Okay.
So we are making a plan to develop a drought decision support system for Bangladesh Weather and Climate Service Regional Project, which one is already provided for Bangladesh Meteorological Department. This one is built up by the PISET Information and Technology Company China, and this was the project of World Bank. And I'm Shumon Mia, right now work in Disaster and Development Organization DADO. Next slide, please. So the main aim of this project to mapping the drought vulnerability and assess the spatiotemporal for the projected area, and we are try to making a web-based decision support system that provide the automatically the drought scenario, the previous drought monitoring and future drought forecasting using several indices, and that we are also making some training and awareness raising for how the stakeholder and other user can use this DSS for their dot forecast. Next please. So for this purpose, we use several local and global data as well as the remote sensing data. We use index monitoring data from DMT from 1981 to present, and we also use agriculture data from Bangladesh Agriculture Department, and we run a WRF model which provide our temperature and precipitation data. We also use global data ECM, WF, and satellite data from MODIS, and observed data from Meteorology Department of Bangladesh. Next, please. So we are use basically some basic algorithm for SPI, SPEI, NDVI, BSWI, TVDI, and also try to calculate the hazard calculation and vulnerability calculation. Next one, please. Now we show some interface about our project. This one for the drought monitoring period from 1981 to 2023. The time resolution was half month. We can predict the drought for half month, a month, and quarter. So for this reason, we use some vulnerability index like DVOC, dot vulnerability for crop, dot vulnerability for land, dot vulnerability of rice, dot vulnerability of combine everything. And we also use some indices like NDVI, BSWI, TVDI, that's we SPI, SPEI, and some most influencing factor like LST, temperature and temperature anomalies, precipitation anomalies. These DSS also provide some figure and reports that we select from time resolution and data visualization. Next, please. So this is some scenarios that we are finding like SPI, NDVI, and precipitation anomalies, and this is the whole DSS system. We can select any part of the DSS, and we can select for the next half month, 3 month, and monthly forecast for monitoring, and forecast for drought, and monitoring for previous any year. Next one, please. And some other visualization of SPI, TVDI, VSWR, and temperature anomalies. Next. And then that's the thank you. Thank you for virtual access of institutional coordination for drought resilience.
Okay, thank you. Now let's invite again Sue. Are you able to present now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I can
Okay.
hear you, and James will share a screen shortly.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Hope that we can you can share the screen. Yeah. Okay. I briefly introduce myself. I'm Dr. Sui Liu. Currently, I'm a co-chair of the UNCCD Community of Learning and Practice on Drought Management. I already see a number of familiar faces and the members of this CLP. So, turning to the page, I would like to briefly share this initiative that tries to address a challenge many of us are facing. Not the lack of knowledge on drought itself, but how to connect knowledge across countries, institutions, data, and practice. Because in many contexts, drought management is still quite fragmented. Even though we know that drought do not take place alongside the human-made country borders or the division of the ministries. We sometimes have data available, but it's not always effectively used for decision-making. Policies may exist. However, they are not always fully connected to the implementation. And the institutions tend to work sometimes in parallel rather than a more coordinated way. Therefore, the challenge is not only technical, it is also more about coordination, interpretation, and learning. And this is where the Community of Learning and Practice, or CLP, comes in. The CLP provides a good space for peer exchange across countries and institutions, bringing together practitioners, policymakers, and some experts. And it also focuses on the sharing of practical and also scientific experiences, knowledges, and to discussing real implementation challenges and connecting some different perspectives, especially to link the data.
But unfortunately, screenshot নিতে পারি নাই.
Sorry. Yes. And what we have seen is that this kind of exchange can help strengthening the institutional coordination by building a shared understanding across the actors. It also supports the translating drought-related knowledge into more actionable insights, and finally, will ultimately contribute to the implementation of drought strategies on the ground. So in that sense, this CLP complements many of the technical and policy efforts already in place by focusing on how the things actually works in practice. So we are very open and always open to the collaboration and exchange, and I will be very happy to connect with anyone interested. And you see at the bottom of the screen, we have the website of this CLP, and we are open to the collaboration and exchange. Many thanks again. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Sue. We are running a few minutes over time, so I'd like to ask to stay with us another, let's say, 10 minutes more. We have 2 more marketplace presentations and then wrap up. So I would like to invite next David Drought from United Nations University Institute for Environment and Human Security to present Climata platform. Please go ahead. And James, can you share a screen, please?
Hello. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. So, yeah, my name is Dr. David Drought, and I work for United Nations University, one of the UN agencies. We are the research arm of the UN. So next slide, please. So today I'm going to present the climate adaptation platform. Basically, with this adaptation platform, you can gather any type of geo location data, and it's an open source platform based on quantitative modeling, where you can model the hazard, but also the risk assessment, as well as the exposure and the vulnerability. So all these data, you can also, on the top of that, use socioeconomic data, as well as climate scenarios, different climate scenarios, in order to check what will happen in, let's say, in an area that's already have been hit by a disaster risk. But what's the most important part in this Climata is that the fact it talks to the policymaker. So the main idea behind Climata is using then these quantitative modeling and data platforms in order to communicate to policy and decision makers. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, so these are the applications. So you can calculate probabilistic impacts from different events. You can analyze return periods. You can assess how climate scenarios actually affect the future risk, not just of today. You can compare benefits, so, adaptation measures to cost-benefit study. It's a platform that can use multi-hazard analysis. So today, eventually, we're talking about drought, so we'll try to focus more about the drought. And then from a point of view of resolution, you can go from global to local scale, but as well from high to low resolution. Next slide, please. So in order to understand how Climata works, so basically we will need the assets, and the assets for us are defined by schools, road network, electrical grids, bridges, houses, but also people, affected people. And the way we do that, as you can see in this slide, we use something we call the impact function that connects the hazard. Let's say the hazard in this case is drought, and you want to study the effect of drought on let's say the schools or the people or the crops or livestock, then we use the impact function to understand what will happen today. So what's the total risk today, but also what will be the risk in the future. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, this is one of the output of Climata. So that's what we call the waterfall graph. As you can see in the waterfall graph, let's take, for example, the one on the left. So the only difference between them is like one is moderate climate scenario and the other one is extreme climate scenario. And then you can see, so we start, the first bar is actually the risk today. And then we see how the economic growth will have also impact. So that's the orange bar, the second one. And then the third bar is actually the impact of climate change on the total risk. And basically, when you put all these together, so today risk, the economic one, and the climate change, you get the total climate risk, for example, in 2040. And why we do that? It's because to tell also the policymakers, if you don't do anything today, because today the risk will cost you, let's say, 5 million. But if you don't do anything by 2050, then in 2050, maybe it will cost you 20 million or 100 million. So that's the idea behind the waterfall graph. Next slide, please.
I'm sorry, David, can you wrap up?
Yes, sure.
Seconds?
So one of the other outputs is, we look at the adaptation measures and we see how the adaptation measures can reduce actually the total risk. This is like one of the also output graphs of Climata. Next slide, please. And Climata has also an uncertainty module. This is very important for probabilistic analysis. Next slide, please. This is all the team working at UNU EHS currently and where they come from. Next slide, please. And this is the last one. We thank you. If you want to reach out, this is the LinkedIn of mine and my colleague Maria. So please feel free to reach out if you need more information about Climata. Many thanks.
Thank you, David. And finally, we have Angelika Planitz from UNDP who will share a brief update with us. Angelika, over to you.
Yes, hello. Now I could not unmute myself. So
yes.
hello, everybody. So my name is Angelika Planitz. I'm UNDP's global team leader for disaster risk reduction based in Geneva. And it's the first time I'm participating in the marketplace. So actually, I did not prepare something on a specific initiative. I think this is what maybe you were interested, but I thought to speak a little bit in general about UNDP's work in the area of drought resilience and our approach. And in terms of our approach, we pursue really drought resilience through 5 core pillars. And one of them is what we call integrated drought risk governance. So here, actually, the institutional aspect is one element of a broader governance framework. So we really try to take systems systems approach to this integrated drought risk governance by working, through across the sectors with a focus on agriculture, the ecological system, food systems, infrastructure, water resources, and sustainable land use management, so that we really try to see how all of this comes together in particular drought-affected areas. Also, what we do is we work on drought impact, vulnerability, and risk assessments. We support drought monitoring, early warning, and preparedness, and engage in some regional and global policy advocacy. And I'm really pleased to see there have been a lot of, big audience from Africa and also presenters from Africa. And actually, I have several examples of our work in Africa to share with you briefly. And maybe one of the future marketplaces I can dive into the details. For example, we've done a lot of work in Kenya, implementing a drought response and recovery project, focusing on climate-smart water irrigation infrastructure. So here working really with farming households in the Tana River area to secure food production. We've been working in Madagascar to focus in the Grand Sud region, working on early warning systems for drought. In Zimbabwe, we are implementing a program building climate resilience in vulnerable agricultural livelihoods. So here again, focus on climate-smart agriculture and the restoration of small-scale irrigation systems to stabilize food systems. And another interesting initiative, I think, is the Sahel Groundwater Access Facility. This is, in fact, a collaboration with other UN agencies. We work with UNICEF, UNESCO, FAO, and WFP to carry out a feasibility study to identify some priority aquifers in the Sahel region. And maybe we could really use one of the future marketplaces to unpack some of that work, for example. And then finally, many of you will be familiar with the Great Green Wall Initiative. And this is again something where we in UNDP work with many other initiatives to fight land degradation, desertification, and climate change. So really a lot of work on using different entry points to foster integrated drought risk governance in Africa, but also in other continents. But today I focused on Africa. So thanks so much for the opportunity. And I tried to keep it at 3 minutes. And as a last speaker, thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you, Angelica. You were great in terms of keeping the time. So thanks to all the presenters for this very insightful and diverse contributions. And I would like to actually invite all of you to share this initiative with more details within our IDMP community of practice, our online space. I think Valentin will share a link in a chat. Of course, everyone else is also welcome to join. So now with that, let's move to our final part. And I would like to invite Valentin from the IDMP for the conclusion and wrap up. Please, Valentin.
Thank you, Sabina, so much for giving me the floor. And yeah, thank you all for hanging in. We're already late, so I'll keep this very short. Thanks a lot. This was really something that is at the heart of IDMP. Some of you might be familiar, and we heard of the 10 steps today. And you can actually not really do something and improve the drought resilience of a country without the governance behind it. And the governance for a complex hazard, as we've heard today, needs to be cross-sectoral. It needs to be several ministries, all affected sectors need to work together. And so far, there has not been any guidance or topology on this topic. And so we're very glad that we could publish together in partnership this publication. And we see today with this, I think we had 175 participants at one point, how important that topic actually is and how much interest this could make from our IDMP community as well. And therefore, yeah, we thank very much all the presenters, starting with the a very great partner, FAO and Maher Salman at the beginning with this welcoming remarks, and then the great contributions from the countries, which I think were very enlightening and showed the variety. So I thank Dr. Asha from Ghana, I thank Dr. Sifo from Eswatini, and I thank Dr. Gina Nilo from the Philippines for sharing their experience and the progress that they are doing in drought resilience in their countries. And then, of course, last but not least, I would like to thank also all our marketplace presenters. I think this makes it very attractive to everyone to really hear what are other developments in the community. And the last thanks go to you, to all the participants that showed interest in this topic, that were there. We hope you can continue these discussions in the community of practice. You're all invited, of course, on the UNCCD community of learning and practice, which is broader, or here in the expert community of IDMP. And with this, I would like to thank also David Walker, of course, as one of the main authors, the first author of this publication, who did, I think, a tremendous job in making this really very applicable and practical. And thank you, David, very much for all the work on this. And with this, thank you very much to all again, and we would like to close this session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleague.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent webinar.
Thank you.
Bye.